Shri Gurubhyo Namaha children. Now you're in Unit 7, Company Accounts. Now what are you going to learn in Company Accounts? So we'll be learning the meaning and definitions of company, the characteristics of the company, the types of shares, division of share capital, issue of equity shares, the process of issue of equity shares. Okay, then issue of shares for cash and installment, issue of shares for cash and lump sum, issue of shares for consideration other than cash. Now, in this chapter, you're going to learn the accounting treatment and the statutory provision for issue of shares, for forfeiture of shares, and reissue of shares. Now, let us get into the lesson. See, your small student activity here. What do you find in common and what do they mean to you? See, they've listed a few companies Tamil Nadu Newsprint Paper Limited, TNPL, then Bell, you have this Bharat Heavy Electrical Limited, then you have Infosys Limited, then Indian Oil Corporation Limited. So, what do you have common in all the four companies? To find the word limited is common, isn't it? So, what do you mean by limited companies? Limited companies are business entities. They are business entities that legally exist in their own right. Okay. So we have already seen the types of companies. We know about private limited companies. We know about public companies, public limited companies. Okay, public limited companies. Now, whenever you write private limited companies. Whenever it's a public company, you only write the word limited. Okay, limited. What's the difference between limited company and public company? See, private company, the minimum numbers required is only two, and maximum members you can go up to 50, excluding the workers or employees in the particular company. In case of public company, the minimum is 7 and maximum is unlimited. Okay. In case of private companies, you cannot transfer shares. You can't transfer shares. In case of public company, you can transfer shares. You are in private companies, you can't raise capital from public, okay, by floating shares in the market, or you cannot subscribe for debentures, or you cannot go for public deposit. In case of public companies, you can raise capital from the general public, okay, and these shares are generally traded in stock exchange or securities exchange. So in 11th standard, you have learned about what is stock exchange, what is SEBI, okay, what are the guidelines of SEBI, what are the features of SEBI, okay, how to list your name in SEBI. Only if you list your name in SEBI, you can trade, okay. Buying and selling of shares is only possible if you list your name in SEBI. So, Securities Exchange Board of India, right? So, we saw what is the difference between the private limited company and a public company. And see, the minimum paid up capital of a private limited company is 1 lakh. In case of public limited company, it is 5 lakhs. So now let us just get into the lesson. Here we'll be learning the accounting treatment of companies. Okay. We in our earlier classes in last year we have seen sole trader form of organization, and we have seen partnership form of organization, and we have already discussed that sole proprietorship and partnership firm. We have discussed in detail. Who's a sole trader? Sole trader is a person. He's a one-man army, and he's the sole owner. Okay, the company, whatever business he is starting, and the owner both are one and the same. In case of I think sole proprietorship, in case he's incurring loss, even his private property is be attached. Okay, and in case the liability of the sole proprietorship is unlimited. So that's why we say that is I think that's why we say that is capital is unlimited. That's why where if he incurs a loss, even his private property will be attached. In case of partnership firm, they are jointly and severally liable. Okay. Now A, B, and C are partners. A, B, C, and D are partners. Now A and B are taking care of the business, and C and D are silent partners. Now A and B and C and D, they have equally contributed to the business, but because of the negligence of A, they incur a loss. So you cannot say because of A's negligence there is a loss, and B, C, and D are not responsible. All the four are responsible for the act of A. That's why we say that they're jointly and severally. Okay. So, and here in partnership firm also the liability is unlimited. That is, in case there is a loss and if the capital available with them is not sufficient enough to pay off their debtors, then even their personal property will be attached. Okay, this is one of the greatest disadvantages of both the form of organization. Right? Now, human wants and needs they are ever growing. Our human wants are there's no end for our wants. We are always craving for the new things that come in the market. So once upon a time, we know that people were all living in joint families, okay, and our wants were very limited, and like there were not many things available, isn't it? There were very few houses, and people, the agriculture was one of the the means of resource for the family, and the very few products were available. Okay, you can say maybe one toothpaste was available, only one brand. Okay, there was only one brand of toothpaste available. Or if you see television, very few houses had television. Car was a luxury. There were no air conditioners at all. Okay, and there was no grinder and mixing. Now this joint family system gave way for now there are no more joint families, very few joint families here. Now you have nuclear families, population increased. So when the population was very less, we had only the sole proprietorship form of business, and we had this partnership firm, okay, small firms with their limited capital. They were not capable of doing for any large scale productions. Right? The amount of capital available was limited, so they were not able to do big business. So, but now that is not the condition. Okay, things have changed. The car, everybody, every middle class family can afford a car now. Air conditioner is there in every house. Mixie grinder is become a basic necessity. See, all these things are no more luxury. It has become a basic necessity. So when you go to a supermarket, you will find around 50 dozen type brands of soaps. You will have shampoos, face washes, and you have different brands of air conditioners, refrigerators, cars. All these things are coming to the market, and the demand is there for the products. Competition is also there. Demand is also there for the products, isn't it? So in order to meet them, production must be carried on large scale. Now, how do you do that? The large amount of capital and modern technology and managerial skills are needed for business units. So, sole proprietorship and partnership firm may not be able to raise large amount of capital to equip themselves with this. So, to overcome this limitation, okay, the concept of company form of organization came into existence. So capital of companies are divided into small units called as shares. So capital needed by the company is invited by public. Okay, so it's raised by what? It is raised by inviting it from the general public to buy shares and invest in the business. So these investors are called as shareholders or members of the money raised by the company by issuing shares is called as share capital. The profits are distributed among the shareholders in form of dividends. Now, supposing you have 10 lakhs in your hand and you go and invest the money in the bank. So they'll give you a fixed deposit slip. Okay, fixed deposit slip they'll give you. It's a certificate they'll give you, and you say 1 year I'm going to deposit, 2 years I'm going to deposit. So for that they'll give you what? What do they give you in return? They will give you interest. Okay, you'll be given interest for the fixed deposit. Now supposing you are going to buy shares from the company, you'll be getting an income from that. What is that? That's called as dividend. So profit is distributed among the shareholders in form of dividends. So it is not practical for all the members to take part in the management of the company. Okay, there will be so many members, many people would have, when the company has floated the shares in the market, many of them would have subscribed for the shares, and the members will be distributed all over India. Okay, maybe one in Kerala, one in Tamil Nadu, and a few of them in Bombay, Calcutta, New York, somewhere, all different places spread all over India. You mean to say everybody can come all the time and they can take part in the management of the company? It's not possible. So, with the annual general meeting, board of directors take part in the management of the business. So, they appoint at the annual general meeting a board of directors. They will be taking part in the management of the business. The liability of the shareholders limit to the face value of shares. A limited company differs from other forms of business units and it has a separate legal entity. Now, a company is different, the proprietor is different. It's not like a sole trader form of organization where the company, the business is also same, and the proprietor, both everybody, everything is same. Now, in case of a company, the proprietor is different, the company is different. Okay, so it is a voluntary association of persons. Now, let us see the meaning and definitions of company. Now, see, a company is a voluntary association of persons which has a separate legal entity. It has a perpetual succession and the liability of member is limited. Now, according to Lord Justice Lindley, he says the company is an association of many persons who contribute money's worth to the common stock and employ it in some trade and business. They should be business. Okay, trade and business. And who share the profit and loss arising therefrom. The common stock so contributed is denoted in money and is the capital of the company. The person who contribute it or form it or to whom it belongs are called as members. So if I buy a share, if I the company allots share to me, then I become the member of the particular company to whom I have applied the shares. So the proportion of the capital to which each member is entitled is called as share. Right. So the company is a voluntary association of persons. It has a separate legal entity. That means the company is different, the proprietor is different. It has a perpetual succession. That means what? It is not formed for a short term. Okay, the company is formed keeping in mind the long term goals. The liability of the member is limited to the extent of the number of shares purchased by the member. Suppose I have purchased 10,000 shares. I have applied for 10,000 shares. They have allotted 10,000 shares. The value of the share is 10 rupees. So I am liable only to the extent of money that I have invested in the company. So what are the characteristics of the company? Characteristics of the company is a voluntary association. So a company is a voluntary association. Nobody is forcing you to form an organization. So no law can compel a person to form a company. It's a voluntary association of persons. I said seven in case of a public company, two in case of a private company. You can get together and then you can start a company by registering with the registrar of companies. Okay. Now, a separate legal entity. A company is an artificial person. It has no life, but it is an artificial person created by law. So it can sue and it can be sued. It is a separate legal entity which is separate and distinct from its members. So, separate legal entity. So, it is a person, a separate person. It can have a common seal. This company, which is since it's an artificial person, it has no life. It cannot walk. So, it cannot sign, isn't it? But you can open an account, bank account in name of a company. So that's why you can sue the company, and the company also can sue. So it has a common seal. The company may have a common seal which can be affixed on the documents. Perpetual succession is another characteristic of a company. So that means the company continues forever. It's not a short-term goal. So its continuity is not affected by the change in its members. It can be wound up only by law. Now, for example, A is purchasing. Okay, 1000 shares from Reliance Mart. Value of the share is 10 rupees. So total 10,000 rupees is invested. Okay. Now after 2 months, the value of the share goes to 2000 rupees. For example, it goes up to 100 rupees. 1000 shares are purchased. Right? So 1000 into 100. So 90 rupees increase in the share. I have sold it to Z. Now Z becomes the member of the company. Fine. So you can transfer the shares. That is one of the advantages of the company form of organization. Limited liability. So the liability of the shareholder of the company is limited to the extent of the face value of the shares held by. And I've already explained to you transferability of the shares. Now shares of the company is freely transferable except in case of private companies. In private companies, the shares are not transferable, they cannot issue shares, they cannot raise capital by offering shares to the general public, right? Now, what is the meaning? What are the meaning and types of shares? There are two types of shares, preference shares and equity shares. 11th standard, you have learned about what is preference shares, okay, what are equity shares, and different types of preference shares, redeemable preference shares, irredeemable preference shares. So all these shares we have gone through in detail in commerce, right? Now here the capital of the company, as I told you, they are divided into small units called as shares, and these shares can be issued by the company in two ways. They are preference shares and equity shares. What are preference shares? Preference shares, they have two preferential rights. Okay, towards the preference right is towards the payment of dividend at a fixed rate during the lifetime of the company. Supposing you are being allotted preference shares, you will be getting a fixed rate of dividend through as long as the company exists, irrespective of the fact whether the company is making profit or loss. Right. And they also get a preferential right in the repayment of the capital on winding up of the company. So next you have equity shares. What do you mean by equity shares? Equity shares are those shares which are not preference shares. They do not get any preferential rights. Okay. Only if the company makes profit, they'll be getting dividend. So the rate of dividend is not fixed on equity shares, and it depends upon the profit earned by the company. If there is no profit, no dividend. Right. So in case of winding up of the company, equity shareholders are paid after the payment are made to the preferential shareholders. So equity shares are also known as what? Ordinary shares. Okay, have you understood? Now we go to the division of share capital. Now capital can be divided into the following categories. What are they? Authorized capital. What is authorized capital? This is the maximum capital that the company can raise. And it is actually authorized in the memorandum of association. When you go and register your company, this is one of the documents that you have submitted. You have gone through what is memorandum of association, what is article of association. In the memorandum, you will be having the name clause, objective clause, place clause, okay, the name of your company, the where you are going to establish your company, what is the objective of your company, it should be legal. So you cannot imitate somebody else's name. For example, Poti, tomorrow I start a company in the name of Potis, they will sue me. Okay, I'll be behind the bars. So I cannot use their logo, I cannot use the name of other companies which has already been registered. So the capital is already authorized in the memorandum of association. So this is the maximum amount which can be raised as a capital. So authorized capital is it's the maximum amount the company can raise. It is also known as registered capital or nominal capital. Now next you have issued capital. What is issued capital? This represents the part of the authorized capital which is offered for subscription. For example, your authorized capital is 500 crores. You are not going to issue the entire authorized, you cannot issue the entire capital. Okay. For example, you can issue maybe 200. You're going to issue 200 thing crores, 200 crores you're going to issue. Okay, so this is your issued capital. This is your authorized capital. This is the maximum amount that a company can have. So 200 crores you're going to issue. Now just because you have issued 200 crores, you have floated in the market, doesn't mean all of them will apply for this, isn't it? So people should subscribe. Subscribe means apply. They should apply for the shares. So you have issued your prospectus and your bank apply your application of shares is there in the bank. People after seeing the prospectus, they take the application, they apply for the shares, and after applying for the shares, you allot the shares, right? So this refers to the part of the issued capital which has been applied for. Okay. So this is authorized capital, that is the maximum capital the company can have. Issued capital is part of the authorized capital which is offered to the public for subscription. Now you have applied for the shares. Okay. And so this refers to the part of the issued capital which has been applied for and also allotted by the company. So next, what is the next capital? So next you have called up capital. So what do you mean by called up capital? This refers to the part of the subscribed capital which has been called up by the company for payment. So after you subscribe the capital, the subscribed capital which has been called up by the company. What do you mean called up by the company? For example, you can issue shares at par, you can issue at premium, you can issue it at discount. Okay. So the face value of the share is rupees 10. Imagine. Okay. If you want to issue it for premium plus 2. So now the total value of the share is 10 plus 2. Okay. If you're going to issue it for discount, 10 minus 1. So 10 minus 1 is what? 9. Now when you want to issue shares at discount, there are some rules and just like that you cannot issue the shares at discount. So you will be learning in detail in this lesson when all you can issue shares at discount. What are you going to do with the 2 rupees extra that you have collected as a premium? Okay. Now called up capital. Now that the company has decided, you have applied for shares in the company, and the company has decided to allot the shares, and the company has allotted the shares. The company can collect the entire 10 rupees at one stroke on application itself, or they can collect it on installment basis. So for example, this rupees 10, it can be collected on installment basis. How? 2 rupees on application. Okay. 3 rupees on allotment. 2 rupees on first call. 1 rupee on second call. Okay. Then another 1 rupee on final or third call. Only 3 calls you can make. Right. So it can be otherwise also. It can be 2 rupees, 2 rupees, 2 rupees, 2 rupees, 2 rupees. Totally 10 rupees. So we said the value of the share is 10 rupees. So you can issue it on par, you can issue it on premium, you can issue it on discount, right? So this refers to the part of the subscribed capital which has been called up by the company. The company is calling for after you apply, then the company will call. Okay, now allotment you need 3 rupees. If the company has allotted 30,000 shares, so 30 into 3, 90,000 you will have to pay, right? So what is paid up capital? Just because the company has called for the money doesn't mean like you have received the money, you have to pay the money. So it is that part of the capital which has been actually paid by the share capital. After the company has called, you have paid. So that is called as paid up capital. Right? So the company reserves the part of its subscribed capital to be called up only at the time of winding up. That's called as reserve capital. Right? So, so far we saw the meaning and definitions of a company. What are the characteristics of the company? What do you mean by preference shares and equity shares? What are the different divisions of capital? It's authorized capital, issued capital, subscribed capital, called up capital, paid up capital, and reserve capital. Right? Now, you have a small activity here. I want you to read this activity and answer this question. Right? The company's annual report contains the following data, and the face value of the share is rupees 10. All you have to identify the company's registered capital, issued capital, subscribed capital, and the called up capital. Okay, it will only take 2 minutes for you. So be ready with the answer. I will catch you in the next class. Thank you, children.